John, thank you very much for being here this morning. What's caught your eye over the course of the last week? Has it been that mega cap tech trade? Have you seen a lot of activity there?
We certainly have, Dom, and you're exactly right. You talked about Apple and how it helped lead tech back. It held on to those gains yesterday. That was very impressive to see Apple. It was either within 10 or 15 cents of up or down at the end of the day yesterday, Dom. And that's pretty impressive given the just whack that a lot of people gave to some of those mega tech names, mega cap techs. So Apple, they continue to bet on upside calls all the way out to nearly Christmas, Dom. So not just very, very short term like December 10th today, but out a week, out 2 weeks, all the way to the end of the year. They're betting that 175, 180, 185, those are all numbers. And you and I both know why, because anything over, 182, Dom, puts it at a $3 trillion market cap. I think that's part of what is driving it. But then it's speculation on the EV that they may be involved with, whether they make it on their own or not. I think that's a lot of the spec that's got Apple shares just bubbling higher.
So we know that there's certainly a lot of retail and institutional interest in Apple specifically. I mean, it's a magnet. It's the biggest company out there, and it gets a lot of traffic. Mm-hmm. Where else are you seeing it? Is it just in some of those mega cap names, or can we go down the spectrum here into other parts of the tech and comm services market that you feel as though are getting more attention now that have not been getting the attention that Apple has over the last several months now?
Well, earlier in the week, Dom, Snapchat, for instance, whether or not it was what Kris and her daughter Kim Kardashian are doing with Snapchat right now, whether that was something that people either anticipated or knew about, and the stock made a pretty decent pop and held on to it, again, like Apple. I think it was only down about $1 yesterday. And it made a somewhat dramatic move, let's say 47 to 52 in 2 or 3 days. I mean, that's a pretty decent pop. That's not a mega cap, but we all know sort of the troubles that Twitter has had of late with Dorsey departing and with people wondering what's going to be happening with socials in particular, whether it's Meta or whether it's something like Snapchat. People are willing to speculate on some of those names, Dom. I'd also point out that Oracle, which used to be one of the mainstays, just like Apple is now, that we'd always talk about. If you spoke of tech and you didn't speak of Cisco and Oracle, you weren't really talking about tech. But Oracle, there was a lot of upside speculation and calls. Obviously, they blew out the earnings. What was it? We had the December 90 all the way up to the 94 calls. I think the stock touched 100 in the after hours last night, and that just kind of shows you that people are still, even on a week where you're up 3.5%, you've got people betting on some of these stocks into earnings, and they were richly rewarded for that, on that bet anyway.
John, I mean, Oracle has been one of those, it's not that we don't talk about it. It's almost a $250 billion company now, a software giant. But it's been the steady performer that's just gone up and up and up. It's up like 37%, I'm looking, year to date for shares of Oracle. Mm-hmm. There have been trades like that throughout the course of this market that have arguably rewarded and compensated investors in a way that could have at least stemmed some of the effects of the inflation that we're seeing on the consumer front. You look at the inflation number we're expecting today. You look at the stock market overall. Do investors have to be in the stock market just to counter the effects of inflation?
Well, certainly if they have the money to be in the stock market, and it doesn't take millions, obviously, but that's why ETFs are so popular, quite frankly, because a lot of folks with $1,000 to invest on up to $5,000 or $10,000, it's really difficult to trade, a single share of Apple and a couple shares of Microsoft and Amazon and things like that. So I think I get it. That's why Cathie Wood did so well in the past years. It's why a lot of those ETFs or exchange-traded funds in the tech sector, even my buddy Kevin O'Leary, I think he had one of the hot tech stock plays last year for an ETF, and it just really rewarded any investor who was in there without having that much deeper pockets that you need to be fully invested in the stock market. But yeah, you're making a great point, Dom, that it certainly has been a great way to offset 6% inflation, which is, the number we had last quarter was what, 6.2% or something like that. If you want to offset that, you need some sort of asset that's appreciating. If you're a renter, you're not getting it from your house. So the stock market is probably the next best place.